Okay, so for today's sessions, we've launched this series to celebrate SMOs' successes and share their learning. This 5-year SMO initiative has been an important commitment from Global Affairs to support SMO, sorry. So, sorry. So we want to use this opportunity to share the impact they had here in Canada, but most importantly around the world in communities where SMO work. So over the next few months and until the end of the program in March 2024, we will convene the Canadian Global Development Community to join us and hear from SMOs and their partners. They will share their successes and challenges throughout their journey, their impact journey, and the important work they accomplish with their partners and the community they work with. Today, we have invited you to hear their scaling experiences of speakers who've all been supported by the SMO initiative. They will share their impact journey, as I said before, but through the lens of scaling and the importance of having strategic partnerships with, for example, other CSOs, national authorities, grassroots organizations, or the private sector. We ask them to share the innovation they tested, whether it is a program, a product, an innovative practice, or an approach, what they've learned from the testing phase, and the impact it had on communities, but also to share their attempt to scale the impact to, for example, another region, another country, a larger community, a different market, etc. So all of them have a different experience and scaling journey to share with you. And I also want to mention that all 4 organizations who will be speaking today, their representative who will be speaking today, have been testing innovating solutions with the support of the Fund for Innovation and Transformation, FIT. Their successful innovation have allowed them to scale their impact and even access further funding through different streams, including Development Impact Window. So it shows the importance of creating an ecosystem to support SMOs while they innovate, they take risk, they build their capacity, and they find innovative solutions with and for communities. Donc, c'est avec plaisir que je vous présente les panélistes pour la
It's
session
my
d'aujourd'hui.
pleasure to introduce our panelists for everyone today. So these 6 all have inspiring, interesting stories to share with us today. In their testing phase and their scaling impact and organizational phase. So we have Madame Sane Dimbe Edenji, and born in Sikasso, Mali. She's a communication specialist and in terms of reproductive health. She is a general coordinator for civil society organizations for family planning in the 9 centers of Ouagadougou. She has worked on to increase health rights and access to reproductive rights in the network, and also do work with media work. This is a partnership with media and Canadian Human Rights Organization.
Social enterprise working to address iron deficiency anemia using innovative solutions. Han has over 10 years of experience in sustainable fashion, partnership development, and social entrepreneurship. Han currently works with Lucky Iron Life as their program and impact director to develop nutrition training programs with organizations working in women's health. Our next duo of speakers, Tony Llorente and Lauren Swift, have been working together to test FIT-funded innovations, which took place in the jungle of the Bozawas Biosphere Reserve in northern Nicaragua. Tony is from Tuberus, one of the remote indigenous communities in Bozawa Biosphere Reserve. He is currently the communication and monitoring coordinator for an innovative technological project for education implemented by Change for Children. Tony is also a Miskito youth, passionate about advocating for the education in his community. Lorraine is the executive director of Change for Children, where she has worked since July 2002. Over the past 20 years, Lauren had led the organization through a process of growth and specializations in themes such as technological innovation, sustainable resource management, gender equality, and Indigenous rights. And our last duo of speakers are both working with the Canadian Physician for Aid and Relief, CPAR. They work on a FIT-funded project designed and tested in partnership with the University of Saskatchewan and aiming to increase access to obstetrical care in rural Ethiopia. Sandra has been working with CPAR since 2019, and she currently manages a Global Affairs Canada project in the domain of sexual reproductive health and rights across 4 offices in multiple regions of Ethiopia. Sandra comes from a public health background with a master in public health specializing in sexual and reproductive health from Addis Ababa University. And Mark Lowenberger has been working as the program coordinator with CPAR since 2020, connecting with the local teams in Tanzania, Malawi, and Ethiopia to support their important work. Mark comes from a background of over 15 years studying and working as a paramedic, with over 6 years as a critical care flight paramedic, concurrently servicing Yukon and the Tikit Meot region of Nunavut. And maybe I should also mention that there is a document available with their full biographies, explanation about their projects, the partnership they have between the Canadian counterpart and their partners overseas. Donc maintenant, Sani, la parole est à vous.
So now I'm passing it over to Sané.
Sani, je ne vous vois pas, donc je ne sais pas si vous avez, si vous êtes en sourdine ou si vous m'entendez.
Je suis là.
Ah, voilà, OK,
Sunny, I
parfait.
didn't see you, so I didn't know if you were just muted or what, but no, it's over to you. You can get started. So thank you so much, Andrea, and hello, everyone. As I've already been introduced, I'm not going to take time on my presentation to do that again. I wanted to share our experience with our La Dune du Med, this project, which was a network project with human rights journalists and with an accompaniment of the FIT Fund to help us with this platform. So this is a platform that follows the health and reproductive rights for youth and adolescents. And this is a partnership with private and public organizations in Mali. We can move to the next slide, please. One more. So yes, thank you. So this is a photo of an activity that when we're trying to share the youth offered some services, and this is an activity that was funded by FIT with Human Rights Journalists Association. So this is all in family planning. And Mali is doing a national campaign on this. And so this specific platform is in a partnership with GDH. So this is a human right journalist for human rights. And so we did a huge media campaign with these youth who are also doing education in community groups. And this is all, they got to really measure and see the engagement of different youths and organizations on the platform. Okay, next slide, please. Sorry, it's lagging a bit, Andréane, sorry. Okay, so here's our presentation. So I'm going to introduce, how did we practice it? What are the results? What are the lessons? What are the considerations that we had to take into place in terms of the scaling? And then I will conclude. So that's my presentation plan. Next slide, please. Okay, so as I already said, our project Light Maître is the organization of West African Health, and it's an organization that gives money to 5 different West African countries. It's a consortium of international organizations, NGOs, and we were working with human rights organizations, and we've had a year to work with the FIT funding. So it's over 24 months normally, but we got an extension to continue on into 2022 with the FIT funding extension. Next slide, please. So this project had numerous strategies to intervene. So then there's a platform that you can look at yourself, leidmed.ml, and then you can see the different platform. And there's 36 really demands or ways to get engaged, and they were approved by the government in Mali to really improve youth sexual and reproductive health. So that we had different evaluation steps that went with what it meant to be engaged. The next strategy, so this is advocacy work. So this is really to encourage governments to really follow through with these engagements and goals. And in these activities, we use the press, media to really push on this lobbying initiatives to talk to the public, to use the television, radio, and different things. And then we had intervention work, which is really getting our journalists actively involved. So these journalists for human rights, we'll be able to put a network of journalists together, and these journalists use the media strategy and really got involved, and they have their engagements that they're signing on to talk about reproductive health and to help civil society really to be more knowledgeable so the government can actually put into place and activate on their engagements. Is also we wanted to use different culture to do promotion of, how can you say, to do the promotion of these. We even had a contest with youth, and they made songs, and they did songs with reproductive health rights and stuff. And so that was a whole strategy to do challenges, rap and slam in Bambara and in French. And so we continued after this for a whole other a year with extra funding. And I will show you the different other activities that we were able to continue to add on to this process with the FIT. Next slide, please. So can we take? What are the results? What did we achieve? So our achievements. So the fact that this was cited, this whole our project in the Mali's national strategic planning. So Senna, you're here. Sorry, we missed your last few sentences. So we're talking about innovation, a tool and a different approach that we can use to be able to do the evaluation and the follow-up to really orient these changes, and that we were able to draw out certain results, qualitative results. And this involvement also was of the youth. This was a youth project, and they were able to do lobbying, get involved. And this project was really led by the youth. They were the first targeted and is very much encouraged. And we thought with the results, it was a success. Slide, please. Next slide. Okay, what are the teachings? What did we learn from this project? So we need to continue to elaborate and help the SMOs in Mali. It's because we created, or this network of journalists was created, we were able, this is the first time in Mali that media really got involved in reproductive health rights. And so it really facilitated communicating and doing education and awareness raising around reproductive health rights in Mali. And it was really useful because we made sure we had the right information getting out, because most youth did not know anything about sexual rights and reproductive rights, or they had the wrong information. So it was really, because often in national TV in Mali, you couldn't even mention the word sexuality. So thank you so much. It was up to, because of the journalists involved, we were able to get this word out. And we were able to like really use this equal collaboration to be able to keep on pushing this, to talk about sexual and reproductive health. So finally, the government could basically pledge to work with these journalists all over in all regions of Mali to be able to do this. And then they created the reproductive health office officially to accompany the government to really highlight and help the communication to make sure this information, because we're seeing that the information was appropriated at only 17% of all this information. So this to really, that's why we're continue on to push this platform with the fit funding to be able to do and do groundbreaking work that was never there before this project existed, because this is civil society and also and reproductive health rights advocates and the government, all of us working together. This is a first time. So this is something that we learned working with the media, how important it was with the journalists. And are the networks still there? The journalists are still there. They're coming out at the Ministry of Health. They're doing that lobbying and covering on all the different themes. And they keep on reaching back to us to ask about what other initiatives and projects we're working on. Slide, please. So talking about the scaling and impact. So the journalists are really on social media, and they weren't active and considered as much those who are just that there's say like not serious information that share, those who work on social media networks. So then with the different coachings, we really got to get better engagement, better information, and knowledge shared and competency raising with journalists who are using social medias. And then civil society organizations and media organizations all got involved, and then also the different artists, musicians, and everything helped create all these networks. We also, everyone benefit from different technical departments that were there. And so they funded the training for journalists. And so then sometimes people were mistrusting information. So we really pushed in helping the journalists in their capacities, training more, so to get this information out more and more. So we were able to mobilize more. So a network of journalists can continue to produce media on reproductive health. This product is still moving forward. The network is still operational. All the different tools that we created continue to function, and the government has taken over and will do the follow-up, and they're committed. And so every time there's a new partner that needs to communicate about reproductive health, the government is actually mobilizing to get funding or fund them themselves so projects can move forward. So this platform is really a reference point. So it's the first initiative. So just for all the different parties involved, there's not a clear tool that's doing the evolution or the evaluation. So that's what we're looking at, to really look at the impact on sexual and reproductive health. So that's a tool that we need to look at on the, and also in this Mali's strategic plan, how to do the evaluation. So we did mapping of good practices on reproductive health around mapping, and also with the journalists and network. And we saw that that was a good practice and that was working, but we're trying to see what the impact is and how do we do the upscale to bring that out so it can go on its own, or does it needs to be accompanied? How do we keep these journalists mobilized? So far, they are still committed with the press organizations and the health support. So before they weren't even networked together. So finally, when we networked them, we saw right away with the different bosses and the agencies would support the journalists, because we have to support them, and you have to decide what different levels of media has to be involved. So they really committed to this project, and then they're, even if it's officially over, they're continuing, they're creating shows, coverage, different articles, everything, especially on radio and TV. It's, there's lots of moments that are just focused on reproductive rights and sexual health. So every week they're going to do a special investigation report on one of these initiatives that are happening, or do reporting on a certain theme related to these issues. And we are able to create like a structure so youth who is more vulnerable, they can actually demand and talk about their rights and their issues on the TV or radio. So that's about it. Next slide, please. So to conclude, so we want to say, if this project would not if it didn't exist, we wouldn't have had these indications. We needed to create the project to have a reference, to even start talking about sexual and reproductive health, especially with young people in Mali. And so it's really to really start. So now to do the follow-up of these commitments in terms of sexual and reproductive health, it was the innovation of using the media is a huge priority on the national level. So it's like sexuality was like a taboo. We don't talk about it, in the media was worried about even talking about it. So, and it's like, can we write about it? Can we create programming around this? And so now the fact that we did that and we were able to give them confidence and trust to do it. So now we trust this journalist network because they actually know what they're talking about and they know the different themes because they were supported. So we think this is a huge innovation, and really like the scale up to happen this all over the country. And even that the government is sharing this initiative and like is committed, and it's going to be future best practices. This is really great. So we're going to try to use this to help use this basically structure of this project to continue to innovate, to find new partnerships, and to be able to scale this even larger. So thank you so much. That's what I wanted to say. I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here. Thank you, Sane. Thank you so much for your presentation. That is quite the project. Every time I hear you speak about it, it's such an impressive project, because all the different levels of actors who are involved, when we talk about all society levels, we're talking about youth, the art, different musicians and artists, journalists, organizations that represent media, and the different politicians and different decision makers in the government. So the whole scale and across the country, and see all the people using this project, even that it like is affecting out further than the country, and sharing these good practices. So just seeing the evolution in the institutional level, the governmental level, and oh my goodness, thank you. Congratulations for this project. I really hope you can stay just till the end of the presentation. I know it's getting late where you are, but please, participants, everyone here listening, write your questions in the chat, and we'll be able to come back and answer them at the end of all the presentations.
from Lucky Iron Life to share our presentation.
Great, thank you. Confirming you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So I'll be presenting on behalf of Lucky Iron Life. If you've heard of us before, you may have heard of us referred as Lucky Iron Fish. But part of our scaling journey has been rebranding. We are a Canadian social enterprise. We are a for-profit and B Corp. And we started 10 years ago with a singular product, a Lucky Iron Fish, which is a tool used to fortify meals with iron that can be reused for 5 years. And the focus of our organization has been to address iron deficiency using simple health innovations. And as we've scaled, we've introduced new products. So a leaf, which functions the same way as the fish, but is shaped like a leaf. And most recently, a Lucky Iron powder, which is used for larger food preparation. So as we started scaling, we realized the singular name was a bit too limiting. So part of our scaling journey as a company, as an organization, has been this rebranding process as well. But for the purpose of today's presentation, I'll be speaking about our FIT-funded project that used the Lucky Iron Fish. The program was 15 months and it ran from June 2021 to August of 2022, working in partnership with CARE Benin Togo, the Université d'Abomey-Calavi in Cotonou in Benin, and a local NGO, Femmes Actrices de Développement Communautaire, or known as FADEC. It's important to note that prior to receiving FIT funding, we had been working in Benin with these local partners since 2018 and had seen some positive results of using the product within programming. But the FIT project really allowed us to test new methods for training, to further embed a gender lens and really test digital ways to reach individuals from a training capacity. So the project scope, the program took place in the Department of Zoo in Didija in 3 different communities. And we had 3 goals. The first notable goal was to reduce the rate of iron deficiency. So iron deficiency is quite high across Benin. It's about 49% of women are iron deficient, and this can have really negative impacts on health outcomes for both women and children. So the main goal was to reduce iron deficiency anemia and improve iron status. And we were doing this through providing increased knowledge of the importance of iron and a varied diet. So really focusing on local foods that were rich in iron, that were available to individuals, along with other foods that can be used to help your body absorb the iron within the food. So really focusing on local solutions to address iron deficiency, and also using the fish in collaboration with a diet that is diverse. We also provided training on women's empowerment, specifically using nutrition as a tool to talk about women's empowerment, specifically around engagement at the household level for nutrition decisions, for making food budgets, and around financial literacy. And the funding allowed us to test new training and communication methods. So as this program took place in 2021, we were still seeing high rates of COVID. And our typical training, which is done through a train the trainer model, often takes place in large group settings where individuals share a communal meal. And this was possible in some cases, but we also wanted to make sure we could try new training methods that were either smaller in size or digital. So we tested WhatsApp voice messaging, working with Village Savings and Loans Associates. There were 138 different Village Savings and Loans Associate groups that were led by a catalyst who met on a weekly basis, sharing voice messaging about the program, about dietary diversity, how to use the fish, as well as information about COVID-19 and women's empowerment. We had something called speaking books. There's a photo of one here. And it's just as it sounds. It's a book that speaks. You press a button and it reads what's on the page. And we found this very helpful through the train the trainer model, ensuring that the information specifically as it related to the product and to iron deficiency could be consistent throughout the entire training along the training line. And we also used radio programming, and this really reflected the same type of messaging that was provided through the WhatsApp groups. We had Two types of methodology. One, we did a clinical study. So the program itself reached 2,500 households, women of reproductive age. 250 women were randomly selected to be in a clinical trial, and this was done through informed consent. 125 women received education on the fish, as well as training on dietary diversity using local foods, and 125 were in the control group, and they were provided with dietary diversity training, but not a Lucky Iron fish. So really wanted to test how the difference of using training on dietary diversity versus training on dietary diversity and the fish could improve the rate of iron deficiency. And so data was collected at 3 points over the 12 months, so at baseline, midline, and end line. And our results were very promising. We did see in both groups, in the control group and the testing group, we did see a reduction in the rate of iron deficiency. This was tested through an increase in hemoglobin levels. So for those who received training just on dietary diversity, we did see a decrease in anemia by 6%. And those who received the training on dietary diversity and the fish, the reduction in iron deficiency was 25%. So really stress the importance of providing training on dietary diversity and how important that is in addressing iron deficiency, along with additional tools. From a qualitative perspective, we did see good uptake among participants, and we also looked at the metrics around women's empowerment. So one thing we were looking at was an increase in knowledge of iron deficiency. So at the beginning of the program, about 20% of women could identify what iron deficiency was and some of its signs and symptoms. By the end, 100% of women could identify iron deficiency and its signs and symptoms. We also saw an increase in knowledge among foods that were rich in iron. So at 8%, or at the beginning of the trial, 8% of women could identify iron-rich vegetables. By the end, 88% could. And we also saw an increase in financial literacy. So at the beginning, at baseline, 20% of women reported being financial literate. This was tested through a couple SMO questions. And by the end, 81% reported being financially literate. We were very happy to see the success of this program. So we, along with our partners in Benin, applied for the knowledge sharing grant through FIT. We also partnered with a new partner here in Canada, Carleton University, where they received funding through the Canadian Institute for Health Research to match the funding that we received through FIT so that we could expand our knowledge sharing event. And this funding was used really to share the results back within the community. So part of the funding was used directly by our partners to return to the 3 separate communities where the clinical trial and the program took place to get feedback from all different levels of participants to see how the program was, how it could improve, what we could do if we were going to expand at a national level. And we also used that funding to host a national event in partnership with all of the partners involved in the program. And we invited governments, other civil society organizations, academia, and the private sector and youth advocates to join us. And from this, we are putting together a working group to address iron deficiency at a national level within Benin, looking at local solutions, looking at how the Lucky Iron fish could work as a complement to local solutions, and really focusing on what financial and human resources are needed and the activities that we're going to need to conduct in order to scale at a national level. From this program and the scaling that we've done, there have been a lot of next steps that have been identified, as well as lessons learned from what we heard both within community and at the national event, was that there really is a need for a long-term sustainability focus. The product lasts for 5 years, which left people wondering what's going to happen in 5 years. If this is just program-based, if this has been really helpful for us and our families, what do we do in 5 years from now? So what we're looking at doing right now in collaboration with the government and our local partners is seeing how we can get full approval to get the product into pharmacies and health centers, as well as work with local groups through a micro enterprise capacity to see how the product could be distributed throughout the country, really providing people with a choice if they'd like to opt in, along with other solutions that can be used to address iron deficiency. And as we scale, both important from a project basis, but really scaling, is that flexibility is needed in timelines. In the program that we ran, because it was during COVID-19, we did see a few delays due to supply chain. We also know that scaling up with governments can be quite bureaucratic and requires long timelines. So from an organization perspective, really being flexible with our timelines and understanding that things shift as we scale is really important. And of course, really important that we embed with local solutions and really focus on how do we complement local solutions as an additional choice if people would like to opt in. We have found that scaling, of course, can come with challenges. I'm sure everyone would say that across the board. How you think you might scale might not be the way you actually scale. And it's really important for us that we hear from everyone who took part in the project, what they think is useful for scaling. So really working in tandem with this working group and getting community feedback has been incredibly important for how we look at the next steps. And one thing that came back over and over again through this program was social behavior change does take time. So the product itself requires social behavior change. Adapting diets takes behavior change, and all of these are long-term goals, not necessarily project-based. The same thing goes with really looking at addressing inequalities from a gender perspective. These are long-term goals, and they're not going to be achieved in a short 15-month type program. And from our end, as we continue to scale, we know it's very important that we scale in partnership and that we have a diversity of voices that are all heard and given equal say at the table. And so this is a picture from our first working group meeting in Cotonou earlier, or just last month in October. And what we're focusing specifically through this program is how do we scale deep within country? So how do we reach a national level, make sure that individuals who want to opt into this program can, whether or not a program is running or not. And from this, we have built additional partnerships. So bringing in other civil society organizations and NGOs, community and youth advocates, and of course, government and academia to really focus on how we can all work together, because there are a number of solutions working to address iron deficiency at the national level. So how do we all work together so that we provide choice? So our focus through this has really been to scale deep within country, and it's also provided us the opportunity to scale out with our partner CARE. So based on the success of this program, we've continued to work with CARE and are now looking at how we scale into other countries. So have a new program, a small program running in Guatemala and looking to run one in Nepal as well. But one of the learnings from this is we can't scale out too quickly. So the original plan with CARE was actually to reach additional countries, and just due to the small nature of our team at Lucky Iron Life and the challenges from of reaching new countries, we've scaled it back just to Guatemala and Nepal and Benin with CARE specifically. So I will leave it there because I think I'm at time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne, for your presentation. I see that there's already a question in the chat that we could keep for the end, but I really appreciate your presentation showing that even when it's quite different from Sunny's presentation, as you are testing a project, but it still requires a lot of partners to be able to scale. But you're also telling that a scaling journey is not linear. We need to be flexible and we need to be patient as we are growing as an organization and growing in terms of the market or the different countries that we're trying to reach. So it was super interesting. We will now move to our third presentation. It's duos. So Tony and Lawrence Swift. So the floor is yours.
Great, thanks, Andriane. Turn on. Okay, great. And I think there we go. Perfect. Nico's going to share our presentation. Fantastic. Thank you so much. We're so happy to be here, and actually, we are both here in Nicaragua, where we're absolutely thrilled to be talking about something other than the fact that Nicaragua's a lovely lady from Nicaragua just won the Miss Universe pageant earlier this week. So this, I hope, will be much more interesting than that. So Change for Children is a Canadian civil society and charitable organization, and we have a 48-year history of supporting grassroots, innovative, and sustainable development in the Global South. Next slide, please. And we also operate an award-winning public engagement program in Canada that involves outreach to youth, professional associations, civil society sector, and also the private sector. Next slide, please. So all of our projects, which we operate in 12 countries in Latin America and Africa, align with the Sustainable Development Goals. And our largest investments over the last 10 years have been in Nicaragua. Here we work on, in northwestern Nicaragua, on WASH and Water Committee training initiatives. And in 2002, we wrapped up a 5-year, $4.4 million project that trained water committees using technology, which was very convenient during COVID. And we've been investing in water systems here throughout Nicaragua since 2002. Next slide, please. In this beautiful place called Bosawas over the last 2.5 decades, and in cooperation with the local Indigenous peoples, we've partnered on many projects improving health, education, Indigenous rights, gender equality, WASH, and environmental preservation. And we've also introduced more than 1,000 Canadians to this remote and climate critical region through dental, medical, teacher, donor, and youth brigades. Next slide, please. So as a result of these projects and many other projects, we've seen the Indigenous people here improve their access to education and health and self-government. But we've also seen the effects of climate change worsen in the area and limit their access to vital resources. So since Bosawas was declared a biosphere reserve in 1997, the forested land within the borders has been cut in half. So non-Indigenous peoples are encroaching on Indigenous lands at an alarming rate as they burn down the rainforest to grow crops. Bosawas is also a UNESCO Cultural Heritage Site, and it's Latin America's second largest rainforest after the Amazon. So it's roughly the size of the country of El Salvador and occupies 15% of Nicaragua's territory. It's made up of a nucleus of virgin forest, which you can see here in green, and then a buffer zone, which you can see in light green. And together they add up to 21,000 square kilometers. This map is the most recent one available, and it was published in 2013, so 10 years ago. It's very hard to get the Nicaraguan government to update this map because the results are not looking good, because it is estimated that over 55% of this dark green forested area has been destroyed through encroachment of non-Indigenous people. Next slide, please. So if we extrapolate the current rate of destruction, the forest of Bosawas will cease to exist in 20 years. And here's all of the wonderful things that we often see less frequently now when we go to the rainforest. So we've been lucky enough to see crocodiles and sloths and monkeys, and of course the incredible diversity of trees and insects. And I've never actually seen a jaguar, but I know they exist there. And there's an anteater here as well. So of course, these are all the things that will be lost in addition to Indigenous territories with Bosawas disappeared. Next slide, please. And Bosawas is also vital habitat for many tropical birds, but also migrating birds, the ones that we see in Canada in our summer, like the blue heron and the red-winged blackbird. They and the yellow warbler, they're all coming home this month back to Nicaragua from Canada to spend the winter here. Just have the next slide, please, which shows you our 5-star field house, which we built for the Indigenous government many years ago, so they have a place to host visiting field workers and government officials, but also our dental and teacher and donor brigades stay here. We also had some visitors from the FIT, some evaluators from the FIT come and stay in this lovely place. We have flush toilets and showers with skylights and a big mahogany balcony. It's really beautiful. And we even have a medicinal plant greenhouse here made out of pop bottles. Next slide, please. So in contrast to our beautiful field house, this is the house where the Indigenous people, this is a typical house where Indigenous people live. And sometimes they house as many people as we have on our brigade. So up to 10 to 15 people might live in this house. And there are, of course, much less room for the basic comforts of life, and no running water, and no flush toilets, of course. So I just wanted to provide you with a little bit of the context of the reserve, and now I'm going to pass the mic over to Tony. We have been working in this reserve for over 25 years, and that, of course, has established this very, very deep relationship that we have of trust and cooperation with the Indigenous people. And this is, of course, one of the main reasons why our projects can be successful there and we can scale them, is because we have the trust and cooperation of the local population. So Tony, take it away.
Well, thank you, Lorraine. Well, and it's true. Lorraine has known me since I was 6 years old. And Change for Children helped me with my junior high school, and university education. They really have been dedicated to this region for a long time, and we are very grateful for that. Can you please do next slide? So our education innovation in Bosawas kicked off right at the beginning of COVID in 2020 in the Miskito Indigenous Territory. Next slide, please. So this innovation allowed us to test the effectiveness of an offline digital library to improve teacher pedagogy, gender equality, and improve access to culturally and linguistically adapted curriculum materials. Part of our context before the project was scarcity of curriculum materials, especially those in mother tongue, Miskito, untrained teachers, and very basic understanding of gender equality concepts. Next slide, please. And here is a typical classroom where before our innovation, a number of challenges existed, including, like I said previously, untrained teachers, severe gender inequality, huge barriers to education for women and girls, and almost complete lack of access to curriculum materials and teaching supplies, especially in the mother tongue, like I said, Miskito. And of course, no electricity or cell signal at all. Next slide, please. So what did we do? We installed solar power, deployed technology, trained teachers, provided teaching supplies, and facilitated access to a great variety of educational resources, especially those in the Miskito language, and many of them were locally produced. And all of this was done with a strong focus on gender equality. Next slide, please. So teachers are now able to use a computer. Most of them had never touched a computer in their lives. And teachers have improved their basic skills of writing and reading comprehension, because teachers' mother tongue is Miskito, and the fact that they are untrained teachers posed difficulties when it came to reading and writing in Spanish, their second language. So teachers now use a constantly diversified digital library to plan their lessons by using new teaching methodologies and strategies, which includes how to teach in Miskito as well. And also female teachers and girls especially feel very empowered. So we are very proud for that as well. Can you do next slide, please? So, and now the classrooms look like this. This innovation literally allowed us to revolutionize education in this region. Next slide, please. So here are some more pictures of teachers and students using technology and working together, sharing roles, like gender-based roles now are shared equally in classrooms, in communities, and everywhere in the communities. Next slide, please. We did not only make available scarce digital materials with this project, but we also created and added locally produced materials in the digital library, which allowed us to promote mother tongue education, promote our cultural identity. And these materials that were dubbed into Miskito and the stories collected locally are the most used modules or materials in the schools now. Next slide, please. So putting the A in STEM education to make STEAM education, we recognize the importance of art education in the classroom to promote creativity, liberty, independence, and critical thinking. Next slide, please. And we were sure to document our results and share them every step of the way with the indigenous government, the Nicaraguan Ministry of Education, and our Canadian funders. This evaluation were key to scaling our initiative, as they emphasized the lessons learned and the most successful aspects of the project that deserved more funding to reach more teachers and students and improve the quality of education on a regional scale. Next slide, please. This project got lots of attention, even in Canada. This is an article that was published in the print version of the Edmonton Journal and distributed nationally online through the National Post. Next slide, please. So I could go on and on about how fantastic this innovation was. But well, in this case, we were also able to test a number of ideas through this innovation, learn what worked and what should be scaled, and make course corrections for the things that were not delivering strong results. Some things that we thought might be true, we were happy to have verified. These things also helped us to envision our next FID-funded initiative, which I will mention shortly. Next slide, please. And we're so grateful to the FID for the opportunity to share this knowledge and the successes of this project with other indigenous communities in Nicaragua during our two-day conference in Bilwi, which is in the Northern Caribbean region of Nicaragua, in the heart of the Mosquito Territory of Central America. In July of this year, more than 100 delegates gathered from remote indigenous communities in Nicaragua to learn about our projects and how they could implement them and scale them in their own regions as well. Next slide, please. So to scale up this successful innovation, we submitted a proposal to the Development Impact Window to deploy technology to more schools in 2 or more Bozawas indigenous territories. This project will also include a teacher professionalization program so that untrained teachers without credentials, 68% of which are women, can obtain them locally. Next slide, please. So with these lessons fresh in our mind, we began an ambitious project a year ago called Local Knowledge Global Goals. So this is a second FID CFC, or Change for Children, funded innovation in our territory, and it focused mostly on the impact of increasing the capacity of Mosquito communities in our territory to use local indigenous knowledge and nature-based solutions, along with gender-inclusive community planning to improve land management and reduce our vulnerability to climate change. Next slide, please. In the face of climate change and forest destruction, we know that indigenous peoples and the forests they protect are vital to the health of the planet. We have found that through the testing and fostering indigenous traditional knowledge and nature-based solutions improves climate change adaptations, strengthens resilience, and improves self-sufficiency. We have also found that strengthening indigenous governance with a focus on gender equality forges pathways to the longer-term goal of improved sovereignty and community-led conservation. Next slide, please. Our second innovation resulted also on an improved territorial governance, including gender-balanced governance, and helped us to map our traditional territories and show us how much land we have lost over the past 10 years due to illegal encroachment of non-indigenous peoples. This data is a powerful tool that our territorial government uses to advocate for land protection before national and international authorities. And as a result of the FID innovation, our people are now more empowered and better skilled to advocate for their rights. Next slide, please. So this innovation put girls recently trained in technology, of course, on the front lines of citizen science. It helped natural medicine practitioners exhibit resilience in the face of climate change. And it also facilitated the participation of women in governance. Next slide, please. And of course, gender equality and capacity building and gender equality was central to every process of both innovations and is very big part of the application to scale, because the local Mosquito women participated every step of the way and in every activity of every project, guiding us with local knowledge and promoting equal access for women in education, employment, and governance. Next slide, please. And the lessons learned from these innovations were shared widely, including in Canada, as myself and our Indigenous colleagues visited Canada in September to share the results of this innovation through meetings with Canadian Indigenous groups and CSOs. And next slide, please. And for more stories, results, musings on how much we have learned and how much more there is to do to save this rainforest, you can connect with us at our website and our own socials as well. So thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you so much, Lauren and Tony. This was amazing, and thanks for the great pictures and the slides as well. And I think your project really demonstrates the importance of knowledge, as knowledge can be a very powerful tool and transformative tool, especially if it includes Indigenous and local knowledge. So thank you so much for that. I'm sure there will be questions at the end. And we are now going to invite our last duo of speakers, Mark and Sandra.
Hello there. My name is Mark Lowenberger. I'm joined by my colleague Sandra Beje, who's joining us from Ethiopia. I'm joining from Ottawa here. And I would like to mention that we're from Canadian Physicians for Aid and Relief. CPAR is our organization, as we like to call it. So CPAR's mission is essentially we're supporting our local teams in building health system capacity and supporting healthy lives in low resource regions. Our vision is stronger health systems in Africa, and we really believe that through healthy systems, we can be supporting healthy lives. Ethiopia was where CPAR was initiated in 1984, at the very end of 1983, due to the famine, and it's grown over many years to now have offices in Malawi, Tanzania, still in Ethiopia, and in Ottawa. These offices all have administrative teams as well as they're doing direct project implementation. Part of this team is Sandra Beje here, who I will pass this presentation off to now. And Sandra was the project manager for the FIT funded pilot project that we are talking about today.
Thank you very much. Mark, you have already introduced me. This is Sandra, and thank you for the opportunity. So I'll go through the project that we have been implementing, and it was remote ultrasound antenatal care access project that has also a name, Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies program. So the pilot was piloted in the North Shore zone of Oromia. It was begun in 2020 and till 2023. The project was focused with antenatal care for women in the areas where OB/GYN specialists are limited. And this was funded by MCIC and FEED. And later on with Blossom Foundation. Next, please. So as a background, Ethiopia has this location is far away from Addis, the capital city, and the national recommendation for OB/GYN ultrasound scanning is at least have 8 contacts of antenatal care for any pregnant woman, and to have this scanning for a mother of gestation 24 weeks ahead. So the demography shows in Ethiopia the fertility rate is 4.3 children per woman, and this also there are also social factors that are impacting our practice, which is the mothers are very uneducated or they have poor knowledge of this service, and the women are most of the time they are poor, and these are rural women we focused and worked on. So when we see the health status, EDHS shows that 43% of our women has only 4 contacts of antenatal care visits, when they are pregnant. Next slide. So when we see this innovative program, this is obstetric ultrasound imaging that was provided for this woman, so that can prevent and identify undesired or avoidable obstetrical complications or health outcomes. This imaging service with Philips Lumify technology was in place for these mothers, and this was the first in its kind because there were some similar practices, but this was synchronous and it was real-time consultation. Next, please. So when we see the innovativeness, what we did was we intervened on the behavioral change, the capacity building, and the material support we have started during the COVID season. So what we did was we have a campaign during in the marketplaces because we can't collect people at those times. So unintentionally, women goes to the marketplace, and we have announced the program, and we try to mobilize the community to have this service freely at those health facilities in mid-level health facilities. So to bridge this gap, the antenatal care service, we have introduced this technology, which was low-tech and very cheap. So we also give these trainings for midline health professionals who are midwives, nurses, and health officers who are basically, they don't get that training from the university. So it's in service training. So after that, we have given these motions, ultrasound motion, portable ultrasound motion with the probe and the attached tablet, and it was given real-time consultation with the specialists who are located away from those sites, which are in Addis and different places in the hospital. So they gave this real-time consultations at the same time. And there was also documentary preparation for this project, and it was a really fantastic, impactful program, and it was well accepted. Next, please. So when we see the impact, we can see that at all levels, at mother and newborn or the fetus, and also for health workers, and also at policy level, it has multiple impact. So when we see the impact for at community level or for women and fetus, the community has developed big trust on the health facilities because there are home deliveries are very high in our country. So after this program, these women are heading to this health facilities to get this care, and it was very cost minimal, and it's very close to their neighborhood. And the husbands are also involved, and they are caring for them, and they are accompanying them to get to those facilities. And since it was during COVID time, it was difficult to travel to other places, but by then it was possible for them to get those services in their neighborhood. So this resulted in reduced maternal complications, morbidity, and mortality. Next, please. During this program, there were different complications that were picked during the intervention in the antenatal care service. So when we see the impact on the health providers, these health workers, we have done this study, and the concordance rates between the health professionals, those midline health professionals, and the physicians were very close, and they have acquired all the skill, and it was very satisfactory, and they were very motivated because they used to use only fetoscope and physical examination to examine those mothers. So instead, it was possible for them to diagnose the pregnancies with ultrasound imaging, and it was really helpful for their satisfaction and motivation. Ultimately, this satisfaction also encouraged those families and community to approach these facilities. And this program also was very appreciated and accepted by the Ministry of Health and all the structures. And standardization of these trainings were considered by the Ministry of Health. And at policy level, even the task sharing is considered for midline health workers, like that of midwives, through their associations and different sectors working on this maternal and newborn care organizations. So next. So when we see the sustainability, those pregnant women are living in remote areas, which are very away from the facilities, especially in country or in cities, away from those cities. So early detection and referral was very initiated, and the high-level facilities are taking them for better management, and the satisfaction has improved, and this has increased their antenatal care coverage, and also delivery, institutional delivery, and prenatal care has increased, and the program is well recognized, as I mentioned. This service is now owned by the health workers, and they are even considering to train other health workers who had no this chance to get this training. So it was widely accepted, and we have also received recognition from the Ministry of Health, and we received the IGNI recognition certificate for this program. Next, please. Probably Mark, you can continue.
Sure. Thank you, Sandra. In regards to scalability, there's been a lot of different efforts within Ethiopia. As Sandra was saying, this was widely recognized, even award-winning within Ethiopia, but there was still a lot of work to do to kind of bring everybody together to try to develop a strategy for scaling. This involved a lot of different strategies, but some of the main ones were kind of collaborating with other major CSOs that are operating in Ethiopia already have a reputation. Obviously involving the Ministry of Health, because anything that is multi-regional is really essential to kind of pull all those entities together at that Ministry of Health meetings, and they were really the ones facilitating these conversations. The Ethiopian Association of Midwives as well. You can imagine they would be directly involved as we're talking about expanding their scope of practice to include that ultrasound image acquisition and image interpretation. That would directly involve that association. And so they're really advocates at the table for scaling this based on the research that we were able to provide. And that was facilitated through the University of Saskatchewan and Salalah University together joined with us to initially evaluate the concordance and see if this is the scope of practice. Can we really expand this effectively and safely? As the answer was yes, that's great, and we could use that evidence and pull that forward. And by publishing that in a peer-reviewed journal is the approach that is understood in the medical world to be the appropriate approach to using evidence-based medicine and expanding the scope of practice, as we go along. So obviously in Ethiopia, the goal it's very, very needed, this expansion of scope of practice, as you can see the statistic there with with over 115 million people in the country. You can imagine a very, very low ratio of specialists. So the scalability is well needed, and sorry, my computer just froze. There we go. Okay. And as just kind of considering what we were talking about there with the published manuscript being a catalyst for large scale scope of practice change, that's essentially what we were trying to do. But we are continuing with data collection and another manuscript development that essentially is looking at the sustainability of these services over time, looking at healthcare practitioners' experiences and as well as the community's experiences over time as CPAR stepped away from operationally, operational oversight and passed that on to the government agencies. So yeah, we're going to continue with that data collection, and obviously we're not only limiting the application here of this research to Ethiopia. We are trying to expand outside of Ethiopia, where we have our other local teams operating, with a big push towards Tanzania right now. That's currently how we're scaling and trying to. So we have a short video. I'm aware of the time here. Adrienne, is it appropriate to share that video, do you think?
How long is the video? Can you remind me?
It's a little under 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 40 seconds.
Well, we have about 11 minutes for question. So if you are okay with it, I think the video is now available for the public, right?
That's
So
right.
would it be a good approach to maybe share it in the chat so everyone can watch it after the session? So
Sure,
we can keep it
I'll do
with
that.
10 minutes. Sorry about that.
No problem. I'll do that right away. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both so much, Mark and Sandra, for sharing your experience with this project. And I think you shared a lot of common point with the other presentation around the importance of knowledge sharing, the importance of strategic partnership, the importance of having the buy-in from national authorities when you want to scale, but also many other stakeholders. Without further ado, I will turn to the questions that were already shared in the chat. So don't hesitate to add any questions for the speakers. Donc, la première question, elle était pour Sané. Donc, Sané, j'espère que oui, je vois que
So
vous
the
êtes.
first question I have is for Sane. Sane, I see that you're still there. It's Mary Ferguson from the Cody Institute, and she was wondering if there was any resistance to your project when we were trying to start it, scale it up. Was any groups resisting, or was there pushback? I guess any pushback?
No, not really. No, our organization, it's a coordinating body that includes many different civil society actors, including religious organizations, traditional organizations. We were mostly concerned about the reaction of the religious groups, but they actually contributed a lot to the project, and we didn't really have a lot of resistance. The only resistance that we really saw, it's not even really a resistance, it's that we weren't able to impact every region in Mali. Most of the impacts were at the national level. That's really maybe the only issue we had with the implementation. There were some issues around the social situation in Mali. There was a very tense period of time. We had a lot of challenges bringing together all the different actors. And so that was a situation that was being experienced everywhere in Mali by all of the populations and regions. And there were some security issues as well in Mali, some restrictions related to security. And so we couldn't go as far as we'd wanted in some ways, but I think those were really the only issues, if that answers the question. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Sane.
So can the iron fish be manufactured locally or nationally?
Yes, that's a question we get a lot. Unfortunately, there are only a few manufacturers around the world that can produce the type of iron that's food grade and then compress it into the shape. But we'd like to look if there are other options for localization. We have had conversations with organizations about how this might be possible, but the upfront cost of setting up a facility that doesn't exist is quite costly. But we'd love to in the future make it possible to be produced locally. It's just for the immediate future for us, not able to do that.
Thank you so much, Anne. And maybe a question for all of you while we wait to see if other questions pop up in the chat. I'm wondering what type of support or strategic partnership would you need to be able to scale successfully your project? So maybe we can start with, well, you can raise your hand, either Lorraine, Tony, Mark, Sandra. Lorraine, go ahead. Oh, I see that you've unmuted, Lorraine. Were you about to respond to the question?
I'm happy to jump in quickly.
Go ahead.
I think I just mentioned this to some degree, but as we were taking a bit of a clinical approach, and when we're trying to scale something quite clinical like that, our route that we're going with the academic research to back up and provide evidence for large scale policy shifts and scope of practice for frontline workers. When I look at that, we did mention the University of Saskatchewan, and there is a need for their recognition, of course, but their local universities were a large part of that in terms of data collection, production of the manuscripts, and lead authorship. I've come to understand that the more rural these universities are, the more impactful academic initiatives like this are. And sometimes the more traction they have, especially when you're trying to put forward an argument about serving those rural populations that these universities are essentially servicing as well. So the local universities was the thing I would like to highlight here as the partner that we didn't necessarily highlight in the presentation.
Thank you so much, Mark. I will read the two questions that are now in the chat. One of them is for you, Mark. So thank you, Mark. In your last statement of your presentation, you are currently accepting application. If yes, are you accepting application form from Canada registered, both in Canada and Sierra Leone organization, or businesses to Sierra Leone, West Africa? And then I will read the second question, which is for any of the presenters. As you consider expanding your programs, have you ever run into some challenges that will make you reconsider your decision to expand? Who would like to take that one?
I mean, I can give a very quick answer. From our perspective, it would, we look to ensure that our solution makes sense at a local level. So if feedback at a local level was no, we're not interested, that would of course be one area. And then in some cases, engaging with governments, the bureaucracy can be quite long to get approval, a very necessary step, obviously, but we are a very small organization. So we have made the decision at times to say, now we don't have capacity and we won't be able to do something holistic and that will really have impact, because we'll be drawn too thin. So those would be two ways.
Thank you, Anne. Go ahead, Lorraine.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to mention too that it's like in terms of scaling, it's been a very satisfying process to like implement the projects, to find the successes, to document those successes, to do the evaluations. And those are all things that are necessary to scale to partners with, or to funders with higher levels of support. And I suppose the only thing that makes us reconsider our ability to scale is when those levels of support are not offered. Like, so the ecosystem to support SMOs that Andriane mentioned earlier is not always a healthy ecosystem, and the partners don't always come to the table with the support that is needed to be able to scale these successful initiatives. So sometimes that makes us reconsider our ability to scale because we can't access those funds that we so desperately need and often so desperately deserve to be able to scale successful innovation. Thank you.
Well, I see that we are running out of time, and we also have the interpretation currently that will be ending in a few minutes. So maybe I will encourage those who still have questions to maybe write them in the chat. And if it's for one specific person, the person could write directly in the chat while we wrap up. But I would like to thanks all our speakers for their presentation and for sharing so openly about their challenges and their journey and experience with this project. I would also like to thank the SPUR team helping bringing together this this event today. And I would also like to thank the FIT team because many of them actually help us connecting with the FIT project and the FIT SMOs, the FIT funded SMOs. I'd like also to thank our interpreters. So Jean, Danielle, thank you so much for your support today and helping us making this event as accessible as possible. And maybe a last message to share is that we will be having a third session like this one in January. So please look out of our e-news. We will be sharing more about this session in the coming weeks. So thank you everyone. Merci à tous et à toutes. Donc on vous invite à vous joindre à nous pour notre
Thank you,
prochaine.
everyone. We invite you to come and join us for our next meeting, which will put forward, testimonials from 3 or 4 other organizations that's going to be held in January. Thank you, everyone.
We will